This is Joyce Davis. Barry Rubinson and I promised you more stories of ministries, of people who are showing God's love in our churches and in our communities. And here they are.
These next examples were suggested by the conference ministry areas of growing spiritual transformational leaders, equipping vital congregations, and connecting ministries. May you find them encouraging and hope-filled.
Hi, my name is Kevin Witt. I'm the Director of Growing Spiritual Transformational Leaders for the annual conference.
Hi, my name's Kim Shockley, and I'm the coordinator of Pathways of Spiritual Leadership.
How do we grow spiritual transformational leaders?
In order to start that work, we had to define it. What is a spiritual transformational leader? And so that was the first part of our work. And we developed a statement that says, spiritual transformational leaders engage others in abundant Christian love that transforms lives wherever they go. Then we were able to build some goals and processes and even a new curriculum to help grow spiritual transformational leaders throughout the annual conference. Developing it was really a journey of faith. But I think one of the crucial things we did with that material that is unique is that each of the 8 sessions starts with a spiritual practice. We used the Daily Examen, we used Lectio Divina, we used different things where you're actually coloring, different ways of experiencing that relationship with God as a way to help people explore other ways than simply, now I lay me down to sleep, kind of prayers.
What I really appreciate about the curriculum also is it has an element of connecting with God, and then what are you going to do about that?
This material has 8 sessions. The first 4 are really designed for me to learn more about my call. The second half is more about how do we lead together to impact the world around us.
We would be really glad to work with you and excited to work with you. And some congregations have taken this on, and it's changing the nature of their congregation.
Well, my name is David Carter, and I am the associate pastor at Faith United Methodist Church in Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. During Lent this year, our church held the Grow class for some of our people. Several of our members decided to take the class with the district on their own, based on what they saw in the quick link. After several of our members took the class and I was able to interact with them and kind of hear about the way that they were impacted by it, I decided it was something that we wanted to make sure that we did at Faith Church to offer to our people.
So I took the class. The best part for me was figuring out where my spiritual gifts are and then using them to come up with a personal identity statement, a vision statement, to really be able to kind of focus in on where I'm moving next.
I thought that the personal vision statement and the personal identity statement were a great part of the Grow class. I remember whenever one of our members called me and was talking to me about this idea of a personal vision statement. And I love the concept because I could tell that what he was wrestling through and working through in the class was not what area of the church should I serve in? It was where are my gifts and where are my passions and where do those things intersect?
I have been struggling with this idea of a call for a long time. Some people get the call and they know immediately they're going to be a pastor. Some of us, it's more of a transitional thing that we just kind of follow throughout our lives. So this helped me gain a focus and make clear to me where it is that I want to drill in.
Grow isn't about here's all the things that you should do as a Christian. It moves beyond the here's what you do, and it spends a lot more time talking about who are we to be as Christians? What kind of life are we supposed to embody? And then how does that impact the things that we do? And that perspective on things was very beneficial for me, even as a pastor, as I walked through this with our people.
Our camp and retreat centers, we have 5 total, 4 in our conference and then 1 that we partner with in New York. So right now we're at Camp Penn.
We're really excited to welcome everybody back for summer camp. And yes, there are going to be some logistical differences, but the big things are going to be exactly the same. We're still going to be intentional about building faith and building relationships.
The camp and retreat ministry is so powerful because you're taking people out of their everyday. We have kids here for 5 or 6 days at a time, and they meet a whole new group of friends.
And so you have this unique environment where you're dislocated, where you can explore new things about faith. You can go deeper in your loving relationships, and all of that is very central to what Jesus was about.
And when we feel safe, we're a little bit more willing to try some things that we might not otherwise be willing to try.
Everybody's strengths get to kind of be stretched a little bit at camp, and you get to learn what are your strengths and how can God use that.
I'm excited about the collaboration and the partnership that is Camp and Retreat Ministry.
The reality is that camp doesn't happen without our relationship to our churches and to other people that have supported us.
Local church leaders are our volunteers. They're the ones who come and shape the lives of young children and youth. And donor partners stepped up.
The reality is that camp doesn't happen without our relationship to our churches and to other people that have supported us.
We had more donors in the past year than we had in the past many years combined.
Camp is expensive. It costs a lot of money to have people come out here to maintain this facility. And the only way that we're able to do that, to keep it affordable and to keep this ministry going for people, is through those donations.
And we invite you to be a donor partner with us in Camp and Retreat Ministry. And the best way to do that is to go to susumcamps.org. And so we really look forward to your coming this summer. Thanks, everyone.
My name is Matt Lake, and I currently have the privilege of serving as the lead pastor at the First United Methodist Church in Williamsport. One of the things that we discovered was that for many years it felt like we were giving more and more effort to Sunday morning and seeing ever diminishing returns. We were still seeing new people and new connections, but not at the level we would have wanted, or maybe not at the level we did at one time.
You know, culturally, we know that people are not engaging on Sunday mornings. And it's up to us to pay attention to that and respond appropriately, to go to wherever we need to go and do whatever we need to do to share the love of Jesus Christ with people.
Fresh Expressions is really an opportunity to turn that on its head and really seek to meet people where they are and to start to do life with them in such a way that the gospel can take root and that they can come to know the love of Christ in that way. For us, as we've tried to live into this gathered and sent mindset, what we're finding is that Fresh Expressions thinking is infusing new vitality into what was our gathered side of our church. And at the same time, the shepherding and the teaching and the mentoring that can come from that gathered side of who we are is deeply needed in our Fresh Expression communities, where we also want to mentor and help people grow in discipleship.
And as people were like, hey, we're for real about this, that momentum is built onto itself, you know?
When you hear people who have never stepped foot in our church facility on Sunday morning say things like, y'all got to try this kind of church. This is amazing. God is here. I mean, that for me is where it's all about. One of the best examples of that for us was a guy named Mylan. Mylan got connected with a Fresh Expression at a local gym here in Williamsport. And long story short, he had been deeply wounded as a kid in the institutional church. He hadn't stepped foot in the church facility for over 10 years. Through our Fresh Expression at this local gym, he connected with a group of guys. Those guys walked with him, developed a relationship with him, mentored him, and he came to the point of deciding he wanted to welcome Christ into his life and to be baptized. When I got to do that baptism, and when our congregation saw Mylan and he was baptized, and they knew that he was there because of a Fresh Expression, that was one of those key moments for us as a congregation to say, you know what, if this is where God is at work, then we are going to choose to join in step and with the Spirit in this direction.
Fresh Expressions are about what you are most passionate about. You're like, where you see God moving in the world, and then taking that passion and sharing it with one other person, and then gathering one other person and another person, until all of a sudden you find that you have actually a faith community that not only meets together around yoga or eating dinner together once a week, or going to the same YMCA, whatever that point of connection is with other human beings, there's usually a spiritual element to that too. So when we were wanting to start Fresh Expressions for the first time, we did develop this plan as a church that we were going to launch like 7 of them in the course of 2 years. We shared with the congregation, a sermon series, and did a small group study on all about what Fresh Expressions are and why they're important. So Yoga Chapel in our church actually started right behind where I'm sitting. There were a group of women who decided that we didn't want to have to pay for yoga classes. We just decided that we could lead each other in little sessions of yoga. And a few people invited friends, and all of a sudden we realized we had like an actual yoga session happening here at the back of the sanctuary.
My name's George Reynolds, and I'm the lead pastor at Linglestown Life here in Harrisburg. I had the opportunity to follow up a conversation with the district superintendent to try and figure out how could I be a part of helping the Rockville congregation figure out what their next faithful step was.
My name is Taylor Delastatius Poff. I am the Rockville campus pastor at Linglestown Life, where our mission is to love God and love others, and our campus vision is to have a heartbeat for the community. I think the vision for merging was that the Linglestown Life at Linglestown campus could really empower the Rockville campus to breathe in sort of new life and new breath, to reach our community, to reach our neighborhood in a local expression of the same campus and church.
Linglestown Life offered us an opportunity to become part of them as a multi-site, and it seemed perfect for us.
Pastor George did a really good, explanation on Sunday mornings about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and I was pretty excited about it.
We put together a plan to create what was a merger exploration team.
Once I joined the MET team, I realized that it was going to be a little bit more challenging than I anticipated.
We're trying all sorts of things. We're not holding to them too tightly. So if something changes, that's okay. We roll with it. And we're also trying to do a lot of community listening so that it's not just we have a solution for you, right? So as you see behind us and around us, we're still renovating. This is Ray's Place Community Center, and it's a place where we're going to do tutoring programs for ESL and other students, regular ed students. It's also a place that a future bike group from Susquehanna is going to start gathering. And so we're trying to figure out how we can effectively share our space. Another idea we're talking about is how can we do pop-up church, where we just show up and do church in different forms, because honestly, if we expect people to come to us, this attractional mono church, it's going to flop. But if we can continue to invite and create worship services that are engaging, yes, people will come, but how can we also use the rest of our time during the week to show up and do church in different and new ways? It's been full of surprises. A large surprise was that we were able to connect with people through food truck programs that we did this past summer. It's also been a really neat opportunity to start things like a community garden, to, as you can see around us, start a community center that's meant to reach our neighborhood, to get really geographically specific.
A year and a half ago, I was kind of like, okay, where is this going? And now when I've attended some of the events down at Rockville and seeing the community come out and really starting to get engaged, and the commitment level from Linglestown Life and Rockville, I think, is just unparalleled at this point. There was some tough times for sure, but it continues to grow and grow and grow.
I would encourage other churches to look outside of themselves. There are other churches that, with great leadership, are willing to take on Rockville like Linglestown did and come together and make a great opportunity to continue the mission of the church.
We've seen connections with people we made in the school district, with local community classroom programs that we partner with in Harrisburg, where we started to connect with our neighbors from different racial and ethnic backgrounds. And we didn't say we have the solutions, we have everything. We've instead learned from them and worked with them to make a better community for everyone. I think that is Dr. King's idea of a beloved community, is necessarily about exchange, learning from one another, and really digging into relationships across the boundaries that we love to put up as a society. I don't know where we're going to be in 5 years, but I know that it's going to be something beautiful and great and bright.
So God was bringing new life to our congregation and community, and we were just so thrilled to be part of that. And we knew that the Lord was calling us to expand our reach for the sake of God's kingdom. And in the context of all of those discussions, an opportunity opened up. And as we needed more space and more room to expand the ministry for God's kingdom, this other church that we began to learn about simply was in a season where they needed some new life.
I mean, I was excited about the possibility because I was familiar with Spry Church. So just knowing the leadership, knowing the culture of the church, knowing the strength of the ministry, and having had kind of a long-term friendship with Pastor Ken really said a whole lot about where we were headed. And I had faith and trust that God had good things for us in the future, just as he's had over the last 10 years plus at Spry.
Well, we knew that while Pine Grove had been going through some struggles, that there were some strong and capable and committed leaders. And one of them emerged quite early on in these discussions, and that was Dean.
Well, Pine Grove was 150 years old just 2 years ago. We had our celebration. But then in 2010, we began to have our decline. And finally, in September of 2019, Dr. Salisbury, our district superintendent, called us together in this building and gave us an indication that something else had to be done, or we would be closing the doors in about 2 years.
And I still remember when we were sitting around the table in my first meeting with Pine Grove leaders, after I shared the vision of the possibility of multi-site ministry being one church in 2 locations. I could tell Dean was thinking about it, he was taking it in, and then he spoke up and he said, well, I've never heard of anything like this before, but I like it.
The launch team that they created as a part of this was very, very helpful. They came and they welcomed us and we welcomed them, and in no time we were like family and, one church.
One of the great advantages of a multi-site model is that we got to draw from a culture and a set of people and a set of leaders and a set of resources that would not be there if we were just doing a traditional church plant.
It's an ongoing process of discovery and learning, and there are challenges and opportunities, but through it all, Jesus has been so faithful, and we are so excited about the new future, the new day that the Spirit of God is leading us to step into.
My name is Doug Hoy, and I'm the Disaster Response Coordinator for the Susquehanna Conference of the United Methodist Church. My responsibilities as the Disaster Response Coordinator require me to do a lot of planning and preparation for disasters. Most recently with the pandemic, I've worked with a number of local churches to provide them with hand sanitizer, with face coverings, with some personal protective equipment, as well as cleaning and sanitizing supplies. We've also supported disaster response teams and VIM teams as they deployed most recently to New York to help with the flooding that occurred there. And then we also support local ministry in their efforts to handle disasters that crop up in the local area. There are a number of different ways that churches and individuals can get involved. The easiest way to do that is to step outside their door. There's a lot of things that people can do right in their own backyard. One of the things that they can do is contact the Disaster Response Ministry, contact me, and we can set them up with some training that UMCOR provides us. And it moves through the process of disaster response, kind of a disaster response 101, if you will, and allows us to introduce them and help them connect with the community and meet the needs right in their own backyard. Providing financial support to the Disaster Response Ministry can be done through a special advance number 8055. The special advance allows the Disaster Response Ministry of the Susquehanna Conference to get out the door and provide for the immediate needs in the aftermath of a disaster. And so by walking out the door and talking with our neighbors and finding out what their needs are and meeting those needs, we can connect with the community and be the hands and feet of Jesus.
I'm Michelle Schwartzman. I'm the Volunteer in Mission Coordinator for the Susquehanna Conference. Volunteers in Mission engages United Methodists in short-term mission opportunities. The Volunteers in Mission can start right outside the church doors in the neighborhood, throughout Pennsylvania, throughout the United States, and all over the world. We have teams that travel to Kentucky, to Florida, Bahamas, Mexico, and Costa Rica, just to name a few. As Volunteers in Mission, our tagline is Christian Love in Action.
I'm Darlene Thomas, and I'm part of Sharmanstown United Methodist Church, and I'm volunteer director at our church for our local Hands and Feet ministry. Being a part of VIM has really, I think, enriched our ministries. Getting support from VIM, getting support from Michelle, having a resource, partnering on things, her help in communicating some of the things that we're doing through the conference level. I think the connection to VIM has really enriched our ministries. I'm going to tell you one story in particular, and then I'll read the note. There was a family, a husband and wife. The wife was disabled, and she was in a rehab center. And they came and assessed the home and determined that she was not able to come home from the hospital, the rehab center, until she had some sort of handicap accessibility. We had some volunteers that gave of their own time above and beyond the monthly day and made that happen for that individual. We built the ramp. She was able to come home from the hospital, be able to be with her husband. And she wrote us a note, and I just wanted to read one part of it. It says, "Thank you so much for building my excellent ramp. I was able to come home from the hospital and the nursing home. May you continue to be blessed as you bless others."
This new perspective that I've learned on mission is not about a hierarchy of serving, looking down on people and giving what we have, but what we can do for each other.
Those stories reminded me in a thrilling way of God's work among us. Truly, God has not abandoned us.
There are many other examples of faithfulness and effectiveness in our churches. They are even more impressive given the constrictions of the pandemic and the uncertainty in our world. None of this stopped us from being faithful to God's calling on our lives to trust and love God and to love our neighbors as ourselves. We may have been pressed on every side, but God made sure we were never crushed. In fact, we thrived in our ministries.
It's been an honor to present these stories to you, and I am excited to see what you will do with all of this going forward. Please be blessed, go forward, serve the Lord.